is feel liberated within yourself consistently and feel joy anytime, anywhere you go. So shall we look at how we can close the gap between who you present yourself out in the world and at home? First, let's recognize what may be the problem. And I would love your voice on this too. So problem is that there is a gap, and because there is a cultural conditioning, whether from home or at work, we are here to, we are promoted, we are encouraged to be a certain way in different environments. So that causes a dual life, dual personality, and dual standard that we may unconsciously put wherever we go, and that is okay. However, when it becomes a problem, when you are not aware of that you're doing that, and it becomes a problem when you are not aware that you're putting a double standard on different category, different environment. So could I hear from you, Janin, Adam, and Maranka? What do you think are contributing factors to the problem why we present one way to home and one way to the world? What are your thoughts?
I'll go first. Actually, it's one thing that my partner brings up sometimes when we're talking about reflections and how often we self-reflect. There's this belief behind like Johari's window of like the 4 different elements of like how you're seen, how other people see you, how you think other people. The way that I'm responding to this right now is similar to what we were just talking about prior to this, Kate, is how often the way that we are being perceived sometimes doesn't always match up with the way that we actually are perceived. And I guess that kind of comes from how childhood, like you were saying, like we're brought up to think or feel a certain way. And how often when we are playing those roles, it does cause a lot of emotion. I'm going to call it like turbidity, where you don't fully see it. And so one of the things that I think is a determining fact is how often we are grounded in our feelings of whenever they rise, how often we allow ourselves to exercise happiness and joy just as often as we exercise like fear or anxiety. And I think one of the things that I'm going to speak Western society has us do is like, I guess it kind of comes to like that conceal, don't feel, like they have certain feelings be pushed down. But as I've been experiencing and exercising through meditation and even shadow work, I think a couple of the factors rely in that there's an idea of like good and bad. And sometimes just recognizing that emotions are just emotions, and whatever this human experience is, we're supposed to have a certain amount of them. And there's that thing that they always talk about, like what you resist persist. And maybe that's another factor, is the things that we say are good and bad. We often give so much excitement for the good, and when the bad happen, we try to suppress it, but you can't really push it down. It's still going to be there. And so I think one of the biggest things is not actually allowing ourselves to be in that space. I think the biggest factor that's coming to mind while you're sharing this right now is what we're being seen as, or what we think we're being seen as. If it's anything that's negative, we try to shine away from that, maybe sometimes overcompensate, which I think what's really happening is it's causing the energy to just not be in balance. And so I think one of the biggest factors, again, Kate, that you had asked, at least for the factors, is that they're not all being exercised. It's like certain muscles are being strengthened. And I think that comes to the gap, is that the understanding of what's good and bad, and versus just occurring or allowing yourself to feel at all levels and not make it wrong, just make it righteous in the way that makes you then return to a balanced state, if that makes any sense. Feel free, anyone, to add on.
Yeah, and Janet, do you know that what you think is good might be my definition of, I don't know. We have different definitions of what good and bad is.
Yeah, it can open up like whole modesty conversations too. But yes, I love that you say that, Kate.
Being honest with yourself first. So one of the solutions I suggest is writing it down, making a journal your best friend, and making a counselor. Anyway, know that there is no secret in the universe. What I mean by that is, when you do something behind the scene that is not so, pleasant, but and you think you don't know, no one's looking at, that's false. Everything is looking at you. So from this perspective, in the spiritual realm, from this perspective, do choose what you are going to be proud of, but even when no one's looking and when thousands of people are looking at you, right? So you're accountable for yourself. But you can adjust to the ideal version of yourself. The key is never to judge yourself, right? There's a book I was listening to about how spiritual realm, this divine consciousness loves us so much, regardless of whatever. And so when we adapt that an idea that whatever I do, I'm profoundly loved, but I can always course correct my behavior and the way what I want to become, I can co-create with the universe, and I'm in full power. And lastly, considering every moment and opportunity to practice mindfulness is the solution I recommend for you to be who you are at work, be who you are at home. So if you're really proud of your accomplishment at work, and if you're not so proud of your accomplishment, how you handle emotions with children, then that's okay. But consider every moment an opportunity to practice mindfulness, and let's bring the balance. If you need to work on emotional intelligence, yeah, let's do that. And then let's do that. If you feel like your accomplishments are not where you want to be and you're highly emotionally intelligent, well, let's do that. That's no problem. We want to balance things out.